So one of the, sometimes people, when they hear these kind of similes, they think, wow, this is, this may, especially if you're new to this, it may sound kind of really over the top. But at the end, these are there for your contemplation. These are not things that you have to say, yes, sir, and kind of, just practice accordingly or whatever. They are there for your contemplation. The main thing is that you do your best to live with kindness, to live in a good way. That is what really matters. And to whatever extent these things help you to live in the good way, they are good. And if they detract, then don't worry too much about them. But we're going to look at 3 more similes in the sutta that also kind of drive home this point quite nicely. So the next one here is the simile of the dream. Suppose a person was to see delightful parks, woods, meadows, and lotus ponds in a dream. But when they woke, they couldn't see them at all. When they woke up, they couldn't see anything. That's kind of a nice simile, isn't it? The idea here is that the 5 sense world, those objects, they are a bit like a dream. Yeah, and I think you can probably relate to that. Yeah, you have an idea about the future, about what it is like when you get that nice house, when you have the right kind of car, you have the right kind of hi-fi system or whatever it might be. Yeah, then you're going to really enjoy yourself and things are going to be wonderful and marvelous. When you get this particular partner, then there will be no more arguments, no more problems. You will live kind of happily ever after when you do that. That's kind of the idea very often. And the dream never lives up to reality. The dream is there, and when the reality comes, it is different. And so contemplate that, because it's very easy to kind of get trapped by that all the time, again and again and again, never really learning that the reality is not what the dream tells you. It is, again, it's the idea of craving is kind of lying to you. Craving says, when you get this, then you will be happy. But that happiness, that contentment never really arrives. Soon enough, that thing that you were dreaming about is not as exciting anymore. Then you want another car, an even better car. We have one of the fellows who comes to our monastery in Perth. He has all of these cars. And one of the monks asked him recently, how many cars do you actually have? He just came in with a new car in the monastery. How many cars have you got now anyway? Oh, I've got 7 cars now. And he's just this ordinary guy. There's nothing kind of special. He's not super wealthy or anything. He must spend his entire salary and much more on top of that on cars. And there's really fancy cars, like really super duper fancy cars. And so monks, please come out. I will need a blessing for my car, because there's so many cars. They're really valuable to me. I have to kind of look after them. And there's kind of no end in sight. Actually, the one thing that I always say when people ask for the blessing for the car, I always say, blessing only works if you drive carefully. That's an important point, right? That's kind of how you get these things to work out. And so he seems to think that, wow, okay, what's happening? Wait, wrong. I lost the internet, I think. When they woke up, you couldn't see them. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Is it something happen or? Okay. All right. And so this is kind of the problem with these essential objects of the world. They never really satisfy in the way that we think they will satisfy. They never really lead to that fulfillment, that contentment where now is enough. And then before you know it, you want something more. You're not really happy with your relationship. It doesn't really, lead to what you think it would lead to. And then there is dukkha, and then you look for something else, and it goes on and on and on, endlessly. The dream is never the reality. So notice these things, Look at what happens in your life when you get something new, when something changes, and then, I would like this, and then see how long it takes before you kind of get, you're not so interesting anymore. After a while it becomes obvious. Tomorrow I heard Bobby said he's going to invite me to a restaurant. And so then, wow, that's very exciting, isn't it? Actually, it's not that exciting. Yeah, once you get there, you get the food, all right, okay, it's good. Then you finish with it. Tomorrow it sounds really nice, but actually the reality, we know it's not going to be that exciting. Yeah. So, sorry, Bobby, I'm being... It's just more food, right? It's kind of more of the same. Okay, so let's move on. We're not going to stay too long with the dreams. Let's move on to the next one. And of course, the idea here is to stop dreaming about these things. Stopping dreaming about them basically means stopping craving for them. That's what it means. Suppose a man had borrowed some goods, a gentleman's carriage and fine jeweled earrings, and preceded and surrounded by these, he proceeded through the middle of Apana. Apana is one of the towns at that time. When people saw him, they would say, "This must be a wealthy man," for that's how the wealthy enjoy their wealth. But when the owners saw him, they would take back what was theirs. What do you think? Would that be enough for that man to get upset? Yes, sir. Why is that? Because the owners took back what was theirs. So this is the simile of the borrowed goods. And this is very easy to relate to. The simile of the dream is also quite easy to relate to, but this one is also very easy. And the idea is that everything we have in the world is like borrowed goods. Everything we have, we're going to have it for a while, and then it's going to be gone. At the very latest, it's going to be gone when you die. When you die, everything is going to have to go. You can't take anything with you. And it doesn't help if you burn little paper cars and things. That's not going to be the way to actually take these things with you into the future. It's interesting. This is a kind of culture everywhere around the world. The Vikings, they would put all their things into a boat, including their wife, and burn everything and think that they would take that to heaven. So this is kind of universal idea. You burn it and then somehow it reappears in your Valhalla or heavenly realm or whatever it is. But you can't take these things with you. When you leave this life, it's going to be gone. It doesn't matter how much you burn things. And so everything is borrowed. And that's kind of a very powerful way of thinking about the things in your life. Everything you own is borrowed. All your friends and relationships are borrowed as well. You have these relationships for a while. You don't own your boyfriend or girlfriend or your husband and wife or your children. You don't own them. They are with you for a while. They are borrowed relationships. You don't own even your physical body. Your physical body is going to have to go. You're borrowing that for a short while. You don't borrow your status and your all the things that define you as a person. You are educated. I have this kind of position. I am whatever position in the family. I am a monk. Yay, I'm a monk. Actually, maybe only borrowed goods. I'm a borrowed monk for a short while. Then I'm not a monk anymore. Borrow for a short while. Everything, so many things in this world are borrowed. And once you understand that these things are borrowed, we should treat them more like we treat borrowed things. And this is kind of a nice contemplation. How do you treat borrowed things? What is the difference between renting a car and owning a car? There's a big difference in relationship to that object. If you rent a car, you don't think about it in the same way as when you own it. You still look after it reasonably well because you are good people. You don't treat it badly because that would also be not nice. But you don't kind of go out polish it like you would do with your own car. Maybe that's only in Germany. The Germans, they love their cars. Their BMWs and Mercedes, they polish them very nicely. But you look after the car in a different way. And so we have more of that kind of attitude to the things of our life. They are borrowed. Why am I grasping onto these things so much? Treat them in a different kind of way. And in a way, that often leads to a more healthy relationship with things in the world. It can also lead to more healthy relationship with the people around us when we know that they are borrowed. They're not really mine. If they are mine, we often want to control people. And controlling other people is a very negative thing. How do you feel if someone tries to control you? It's not nice. Yeah, you feel hemmed in, you feel constrained, you feel constricted, you feel unfree if someone else is trying to control you. But if we know that these are relationships and they are borrowed, then yes, we love our children, we help them, but in the end we give them the freedom to live their life in their own way. So this is kind of without controlling. You have a new attitude to things. You understand that your children, they come into your life from some unknown past with a personality that has already been formed in a past life. And then they stay with you. You borrow those children for 20 years or 30 years or whatever, and then they move out and they move on into their own existence. And eventually you all have to die and you go your separate ways. So our relationships in this world is this temporary coming together from a past that we don't know. And then eventually we die or something happens and then we go our separate ways again. And all relationships are like that. Yeah, they are temporary, they are borrowed, and it changes the way we think about these things. And of course the way the Buddha talks about this, the one thing that is never borrowed according to the Buddha is our karma. Yeah, that is the one thing. The Buddha says we are the heirs of our karma, we are the owners of our karma. So all of these things in the world are borrowed except for that one thing. What is the karma in this particular case? The karma in this case is basically the qualities of your mind. Because the actions that you do in this life, the karma that you build up, that manifests in your mind as a bright mind, a happy mind, and this is how karma manifests right here and right now. And those qualities of the heart that you build up in this life, the kindness, the gentleness, the compassion, the understanding, the wisdom, not least of all, the wisdom that you build up, that is what you take with you into your future existence. And so you never really waste your time by living the spiritual life. If you live the spiritual life well, you have a starting point for your next life, and you build on those qualities you already built up. Whereas all of the goods you had, you can't build on that because that is lost forever. So what are you going to invest in? Are you going to invest in those things that you can take with you into the future? The kindness, the goodness, the generosity, are you going to invest in that because these are qualities you can bring with you? Or are you going to invest in borrowed goods? Are you going to invest your entire life in building up things that you're going to have to give up when you die? You can see how crazy that is. It's kind of short-term investment, right? Tomorrow you're going to have to maybe give it up. How much time are you going to spend on things that you may have to give up tomorrow or the day after? The answer is not that much time. And so it changes your attitude to things. It doesn't mean that you don't care for the things of this world, but you care for them in a new way. You still care for your family, you still care for your friends, you even look after the things that you own, but you do it now coming from kindness rather than coming from a sense of ownership. Sense of ownership means controlling, it means sometimes getting angry and upset, it means all of these negative things. But now, instead of thinking about it in this way, you do things with kindness because you understand that how you deal with things is actually what really matters. Not what you have, but how you live your life is the important thing here. And so your attitude to life changes. You do things in a new way. You do things in a way where you look for the real long-term future, which includes future lives and all of these kind of things. And so this is what you do. You build up these things. And of course, the further you take this on the path, the more things you have for the future to help you down the track. However far that goes into the future. In the end, even your karma at the end of the day, if you look at the very, very long term, it's kind of borrowed. But because eventually the karma wears out, eventually it doesn't have any more power, but it's far more long term than the ordinary things of this world. You may bring it with you many, many lives into the future. Some of those lives may last for a very long time, and so it may be something very significant. So this is about attitude. It doesn't mean that you stop owning things or you don't stop looking after the things of this life, but your attitude to them changes. You use them in a way which is conducive to the spiritual practice. All right. You can see here that one of the things that happens here is that they say that must be a wealthy man, for that is how the wealthy enjoy their wealth. So then you start identifying with it, right? I am wealthy. Yes, that's exactly right. That's what I am. This is myself. This is my ego. I become wealthy. And you can see if you become very wealthy, you identify with that. It's very common in the world. And if you lose all your wealth, you feel kind of naked and you feel that you are not worth anything anymore, and you jump off a building or something because your sense of identity, self-worth, has been destroyed. It's terrible, but that's kind of how it works sometimes. Okay, coming to the very last of these 7 similes. Suppose there was a dark forest grove not far from a town or village, and there was a tree laden with fruit, yet none of the fruit had fallen to the ground. And along came a person in need of fruit, wandering in search of fruit. Having plunged deep into the forest grove, they would see that tree laden with fruit. They would think, that tree is laden with fruit, yet none of the fruit has fallen to the ground. But I know how to climb a tree. Why don't I climb the tree, eat as much as I like, then fill my pouch? And that is what they would do. Yeah? So what is this all about? Well, the fruit laden with tree is obviously here the sensual objects of the world. Yeah, you are wandering along in the forest. That's kind of you in your life, wandering around aimlessly around KL, looking at the nice shops, finding some nice shops somewhere we can buy something useful. Yeah, that's kind of and you find some nice shop recently opened up that sells some yummy food. Yeah, so you plunge into that shop. That's like climbing the tree. And you climb that tree and you eat those fruit, ripe mangoes. Wow, such nice mangoes, they're just perfect. And so you enter that shop in KL and you eat whatever it is. And this is kind of the idea here, looking, searching for things in that 5 sense world, climbing those trees, entering those shops, And so he does that, and he kind of fills his pouch as well, and he sits up in that tree eating away, and loses his mindfulness a little bit. When you eat a yummy mango, you also lose your mindfulness. Is that true? Maybe not. Maybe durian. Okay, durian. When you eat durian, you lose your mindfulness. Not with mango. Mango is not enough. Okay, durian. So I don't have that problem with durian. But anyway. So then what happens, right? Then it gets interesting here. Along would come a second person in need of fruit, wandering in search of fruit, carrying a sharp axe. Having plunged deep into that forest grove, they would see that same tree laden with fruit. They would think, that tree is laden with fruit, yet none of the fruit has fallen to the ground. But I don't know how to climb a tree. Why don't I chop this tree down at the root? Eat as much as I like, then fill my pouch. Whoa. And so they would chop that tree down at the root. There's a problem for the first guy, who is sitting on top of that tree eating mangoes, or eating durian, or whatever it is that he's eating. And if he doesn't get some mindfulness quickly, so he knows what's going on, he is going to be in serious trouble. So the idea here, let's just finish the simile first of all. What do you think, householder, if the first person who climbed the tree doesn't quickly come down, when that tree falls, wouldn't they break their hand or arm or other limb, resulting in death or death-like suffering for them? Yes, sir. So here the problem is that when you enter that world of the 5 senses, you become intoxicated. You become completely, you lose your mindfulness. You lose your ability to see what you should be doing. And that intoxication means that you end up doing what you shouldn't be doing, and you don't do what you should be doing. And that very often means that when you are intoxicated, whether that's by alcohol or just sensual pleasure or just being young, being strong, or whatever it might be, all of these are different kinds of intoxication according to the suttas. When you are intoxicated, you do stupid things. You do bad actions by body, speech, and mind. You forget what is really important, what you really should be doing. And unless you come out of that intoxication quickly, unless you sober up and you get that mindfulness clarified, come down from that tree, stop doing stupid things, you're going to suffer a lot. And of course, that suffering here in Buddhism basically means like a bad rebirth or something like that. That's kind of the idea here. So this is the problem of life, is the intoxication by the pleasures of the world. Very common thing, especially when you are young. You kind of enjoy yourself all the time. You want to kind of do all kind of things, and you don't forget about the reality of life. And the reality of life is that there is a bigger picture. And what really matters, both for your happiness now and later on, is that bigger picture. That you live well, that you have clarity of purpose, that you don't do bad things by body, speech, and mind. That's what it means. Okay. Yes, sir. In the same way, a noble disciple reflects. With the simile of the fruit tree, the Buddha said that sensual pleasures give little gratification and much suffering and distress, and they are all the more full of drawbacks. Having truly seen this with right understanding, they reject the equanimity based on diversity and develop only the equanimity based on unity, where all kinds of grasping to the world's material delights cease without anything left over. So, these are the Buddha's similes of the five sense world and the sensual pleasures, and the idea again is that we are trapped by that world. We are limited by that world, and sometimes this is many of these traps here are kind of obvious in a way, but we are also trapped in a much more fundamental sense by the five sense world. When you are in your daily life, you see things, you hear things, you are limited to that realm. Your mind is trapped by that realm. The seeing and the hearing and the enjoying of the five senses, it kind of completely, that's what the mind becomes. It becomes that realm of the five senses. Your mind is kind of engulfed and enveloped by the experiences of that five sense world. And so the mind is limited by that. But when you reject that five sense world, when you are successful in your meditation practice and you go beyond the five sense world, it allows the mind to expand beyond that. It allows the mind no longer to be held back by the five senses, to be limited by seeing, to be limited by hearing. But it goes beyond that. It can experience then joys and happinesses and expansiveness and all of these things far beyond what you can ever experience with the five senses. And this is why giving up the five senses is such a powerful thing, because it allows you a much deeper experience. And this is why when someone like Ajahn Brahm, he has a chance to go to the first story and look at the beautiful view of the ocean and the palm trees, he says, "Thank you very much, but I'd rather go downstairs and just see that wall outside." Because that wall is not interesting. And because it's not interesting, it's not going to detract you from the real happiness which is found within. That is far more important. That is where your mind gets released from something that is called much lower. It's called the hina. The hina is the lower thing, and it rises up to the panita. The panita is the sublime or the excellent. And you find that within by giving up these five senses. So we are trapped in a sense by that world. This is our prison. And by releasing ourselves from the five senses, we're coming out of a certain prison, allowing the mind to expand and actually discover something far superior as a consequence. So, let us take a 5-minute break.
John, you've given a lot of example about anger, about the automaton and red light. Can you give a similar useful example for anxiety instead?
For anxiety, it's a bit different with anxiety because anxiety is a fear of things going wrong in the future. Yeah, sometimes hard to pin down. Some people feel anxiety without really knowing what the object is. You don't really know exactly what you are afraid of. It's a kind of a generalized anxiety about life. But really, it comes from the sense that something can go wrong. If you know that your future is bright and beautiful, you're not going to have an anxiety. And the way to overcome that also, from my perspective, and I don't have much anxiety. It's a bit difficult for me I don't know exactly, I have never really had to overcome it, to put it that way, so I don't really know exactly what to do. But my sense is that if you think of the future in a positive way, and you know that the future is bright, then the anxiety should go down. And so one of the beautiful things about being on the a spiritual path is that you are creating a good future. So you are actually doing all the right things, that the future will be better. And I think after a while you will start to feel that. After a while you will actually get this feeling that the future is bright. And especially if you are able to develop metta and karuna, compassion and goodwill towards everyone in the world, that goodwill and compassion is not compatible, I think, with anxiety. If you have goodwill for the whole world, there's no way you will have anxiety anymore after that. But so it's just a matter of keeping on developing these things. It can be related to the idea of the red light and that kind of thing, because if you see everyone in the world as kind of red lights in a sense, actually you start to have more compassion for everyone in the world, because you know that they are under the influence of the conditioning of the past, the conditioning of now, whatever it is. And if you're able to have more compassion for everyone in the world, the anxiety will also go down, because that will be a positive feeling within the person who has anxiety. So seeing the future as positive is kind of the critical thing, I think, and that will happen through just learning to reflect in the right way, but also just through practicing the path in a good way. And after a while, you start to see that. I also sometimes it's also helpful maybe to go to, to see someone who, like a psychologist or somebody who can kind of, because sometimes they have kind of skillful ways of dealing with these things, or maybe some of your friends here in the BGF. I'm sure there are some. I'm not sure exactly how the BGF works, but you may very well have some good people here who can give you some guidance as well. So sorry, I can't. I'm not very. That's not. Not sure how useful that is, but anyway, see what happens.
Happy afternoon, Ajahn.
Good afternoon, indeed. Yes.
So sometimes we chant for the aspirations to go to Nirvana. So the last sentence is Nirvana Pachaya Ho Tu.
Yeah.
Then everybody says sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Yeah.
What is the meaning of sadhu? Accept excellence, excellent, excellence. Can we go for a deeper meaning? The local language.
The local language.
Local
of sadhu,
language. Can we shout? Sao do, sao do, sao do.
What does that mean?
That is mean we receive.
Okay.
We receive the merits to go to Nirvana.
I see. Okay.
So can we silently say la? No need to say loud.
Yeah.
Because if you don't program your mind, you may not receive. No, we have to receive. Then we receive the merits. Then we receive the aspiration to go to Nirvana.
Yeah. Okay. You know how Ajahn Brahm translates sadhu, right? Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So maybe you can say awesome. That's one thing you can do. We say nibbana pachaya hotu, but you don't really get to nibbana by aspiration. Nibbana is acquired by practicing in the right way. So that's really important. So some little bit of aspiration is good because it kind of puts the mind on the right track and then you move in the right direction. But it's not really necessary to say Nibbana Paccaya, nor is it necessary to say sadhu afterwards, but it's more important how you incline the mind in the right direction. But Nibbana is a very high aspiration. Sometimes we don't even understand what Nibbana is. And so I would say that sometimes that can get in the way, the aspiration can get in the way, and sometimes it is better to just live well, live to the best of your ability, because you know you will have good results. And if you don't go to Nibbana, you may at least go to a heavenly realm. Yeah, that's kind of a good start point. And then you kind of take it further to Nibbana later on. But everything good you do will help you for a good future. And that is kind of the important thing, and just understanding the urgency of it is what really matters. But don't think too much, I must get to jhana, I want to be a stream enterer, I want to get to Nibbana, because all of that is kind of just too much, too materialistic almost, too ambitious maybe. It's good to be ambitious, but be ambitious with something you understand, first of all. And then the idea of Nibbana kind of emerges gradually over time, what it means, Anyway,
Another second one is I want to ask whether I position or program my mind correctly or not.
Yeah.
Because we have been organizing this retreat for past 8 years.
8 years?
So over years, 80% of our volunteers are above 60.
They're what?
Above 60 years old, including Ajahn.
Okay.
So it bounds to have a lot of oops.
Yeah.
So when people complain, I have compassion on her or him.
Yeah.
In my heart, I train my mind. Let her or him complain so that she have meet her target for the day of complaint. She can sleep for the night.
Yeah. Okay.
Soundly. And then yesterday you gave us an idea. I will pray in my heart. Fortunately, she will go to, or he will go to the right side of the heaven. So this sort of thing, we should not think, right?
Yeah, no. So the people should meet the target of complaints for the day. I'm not sure if that is a good way of thinking about things. No, but I think you are using it as a kind of skillful means, so you don't get upset or whatever. And I think that's good. That's okay. Yeah, I think that's not so bad. So you are, as long as you can deal with it in a cool way, the people's complaints, that's fine. So yes, there are kind of many people over 60 maybe, and yes, I am also just over 60 now. So we are all kind of in the same boat. But we do what we can, and some people here are not 60 yet, which is great. Some people are younger. That's a wonderful thing that we have some younger people as well. But we do our best, and then if people come, that's great. If people don't come, okay, that's just the way it has to be. So I think one of the most important things for me is always that we have to sell the Dhamma in a way that is it works. And to me, the teachings of the Buddha, these are the most beautiful spiritual teachings in the world. There is nothing like this. It's kind of really, really unique in so many different ways. And so it is up to us to be able to package it in a way that it sells well to everyone, including to young people. It is about the meaning of life. How can people not be interested in the meaning of life? Everyone should be interested in that. I know when I was young, a teenager, I was interested in the meaning of life. I wanted to figure out what I was supposed to do with myself. And of course, the meaning of life is a very important part of that. And so I think in the end, young people also will, those young people who are wise, they will eventually come. They will arrive. They will find the spiritual path somehow. I just mentioned the other day that recently I got this message from a teenager in India who was interested in Dhamma, right? And that's kind of wonderful when that happens. So there are people out there who will understand, because there's always going to be somebody who inclines towards this. So keep the BGF going, so that those people who do incline this way, they have the opportunity to hear the Buddha's teachings, etc., etc. So yes, thank you for those things, Julin. That's good. So okay. Anything else? Okay.
Sorry, I just want to extend from the question that the lady asked just now about anxiety.
Yes.
So there was a talk by Nyaninda. He mentioned that since a person is anxious, and then anapanasati will be a very good remedy, like 5 minutes a day, just to, because when you are anxious, then your breathing will be affected. So just to focus on the constant focus on the breathing daily. Whereas if you have anger, then go for metta, and if you have fear, then Buddhanusati will be good. That's what Bhante shared. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So of course, because anapanasati kind of calms you down, so it kind of makes for that peace. If you have anxieties, that's helpful. But sometimes you also want to deal with the underlying issues because it makes you peaceful for a while, but then it comes back again because the underlying issue hasn't been dealt with. So dealing with the underlying issue will then do something which counteracts the anxiety directly. Yeah, so it's a bit like the idea of anger. You can have mindfulness, and the mindfulness will reduce the anger a little bit. So you can do anapanasati against anger, but anapanasati and mindfulness will not eliminate the anger. That has to be done through metta, as you rightly say. And the same thing with anxiety. Anxiety, you ideally want to do something which counters the anxiety, counters the fear. And that would then also be something like metta or compassion, which goes against that in the long run. So they can be used together. Anapanasati can be a kind of calming down now, and then you can also use some cognitive way where you learn to think in a new way to deal with the underlying things. Yeah.